Oh, the shade! The shade! What am I? A King Corndog? Guldborg, this one's for you, King Cornborg. Welcome to the Castle Desk. I'm Quickshot, joined by Dagda and Vedius. It's Fnatic versus SK, do or die. The winner goes to playoffs next Friday, and the loser is eliminated at groups. Vedi, what are you expecting? 5-0 in favor of SK. Can they make it 6-7?
The last time we cast them, Quickshot, we came in with Fnatic heavy favorites.
Yes.
But we got to get rid of that now because it is very clear that Fnatic cannot beat SK this year. Coming into this series, SK should be considered the favorites. They have had their number all throughout the year, and we'll see what Fnatic have cooked up to be able to deal with it.
SK fans, Berlin! SK fans, did you hear that? Vedi says SK are the favorites!
They're winning worlds!
As we jump into draft, we all know that Vedi's just a Fnatic hater. But Dagda, Fnatic inside selection, they picked a blue
Well, he's
side.
starting this cast off strong. You're just really coming in there.
Let's talk about draft, Dagda. We cast him yesterday, straight out the gate. Ivan Poppy Jace removed.
And that's the big thing. I think if I'm actually SK, I'm a little bit more terrified of Fnatic after seeing them yesterday. I felt like they got to grips with the meta. They figured out how they want to play it. And if they can actually bring that to the table here today, I think they'd be in a good spot. And already you can see SK responding. Jace taken off the board, which we didn't see the last time. And you're still going to have a lot of things like the Tristana, which might need to be banned away here.
Rumble is open, Rell is open. What will be removed from the pool? Kai'Sa as well. I think Kai'Sa a little lower priority yesterday than maybe we were expecting, at least in our first series.
They're thinking about what else could they ban away from Humanoid. Definitely seems to be the focus.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, they were able to deal with this Xayah the last time round, and with both LeBlanc and Jace taken off the boards, the Rumble will actually be taken off and rounded out. You talked about it, Quickshot, makes a lot of sense. The priority, Rell. We've seen Rell be incredibly impactful here in the LEC. Her presence has been very well felt, and now we'll get to see it in the hands of Trymbi himself.
Yeah, I think on the opposite side here for SK, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Tristana taken, especially when you look towards Irrelevant. He's been more than happy to take things like the Jax into the top side, which can offer some of that AP damage, and you can still take something like the Sejuani or something along those lines in the jungle for Markoon. Kai'Sa, more than likely going to be lock-in, but I think Tristana for that second rotation.
Would make sense. And Exakick versus Noah is a matchup I'm particularly looking forward to. Noah got silenced last week by Exakick and DOS. And I'll tell you what, both of these two individuals on Twitter, if you don't follow them, you should. They have some spicy bants back and forth. We'll find out whether or not that Tristana gets locked in. We'll know that who will be piloting at least one of those ADs. I mean, in terms of available picks, there's still a number of favorites, and that's it, Tristana for now.
Well, I'm curious as to what the Poppy or the Sejuani is going to be. Well, with the Poppy taken away, Sejuani's value, I think, increases dramatically. The Xayah Rakan immediately locked in answers my question about the Sejuani. That Rell is going in the jungle for Razork, and we're going to have Noah and Trymbi on a lot more engaged once again. I think Fnatic look their best when you have Trymbi and Razork on things that can actually start off these fights. And when you have Rakan and a Rell paired together, engage seems to be really the core of their team fighting.
And it also means that you kind of put SK into a hard spot because it's like, okay, well, if we take the Sejuani, fine, but it means you can remove things like the Braum from the bottom lane, which would do really well into things like the Xayah and also that Rakan. So I think it's kind of a good start here for Fnatic, and I think that's kind of what has been the big talking point this weekend for Fnatic is just how much more comfortable they seem coming into this pick. Because the last time we saw these two teams face up, game one, well, you got the Tristana, you got the Kai'Sa, and then you had a Maokai as well that had also gone over towards SK. So already kind of looking like a similar enough draft. So I'm curious to see if Fnatic can kind of book that trend that we've already seen them have against SK.
I wonder if Fnatic will actually choose to ban out top laners here. If we're thinking about Oscarinin, he just played Ornn yesterday, right?
Yeah.
He was just more of that engage. He obviously paired it up alongside the Maokai. But it actually looks like that they will instead focus those supports as you were talking about, Dagda. Of course, that does make just as much sense to try and limit some of the nice pairings that you can have with the Kai'Sa. The Nautilus taken away. I wonder what they'll choose to round out as SK seem to continue targeting Humanoid. The Ahri now taken away. I wonder if they're going deep in the pool if they hit something like his Victor, but the Gnar will be taken away from Oscar.
And the other thing as well is keep in mind that both Irrelevant and Sertuss have kind of played some comfort picks throughout the course of the year. The last two picks from Game 2 last weekend was Gwen as well as Akali. It threw me for a little bit of a loop. And we see another ban targeted towards the top lane that Nah has been removed from the pool. But I think for Oscar, yesterday his own performance in that solo kill against Rumble was phenomenal. And I think both of these top laners have been quietly dominating throughout most of summer.
Yeah, I think here, though, if you end up taking the Ornn, you do open up things like the Gwen, which is where Irrelevant would be very happy, especially with the amount of AD damage you have. Obviously, Kai'Sa going to go for that AP route, but I think you'd be more than happy to go for a little bit of that AP top side. Curious to see if that blitz is going to be coming through. I'd love a Braum. I actually think Braum would be sick here. Works out really well with the Sejuani, but they're just going to go immediately for Irrelevant's Jax instead.
I wonder how Oscarinin will reply. He may just go for the Cassante. I know that we see a lot of Jax into Cassante, but still it's a fairly safe matchup, something you don't have to invest a lot of resources into. He could choose to go for a tank. I'm still a big fan of Malphite into the Jax. He could just choose to go for the Ornn once again. He still has a lot of options depending on the approach they want to take.
Kennen is also another one that we see, like, doesn't do so hot in the side lanes, but can definitely have that massive impact in fights and is able to control the Jax in those early stages as well. So, as you say, I think the world's your oyster a little bit here with Oscarinin. You've got options, but the big one is SK have been fighting that game plan of, we will play for top side really effectively, making sure that Irrelevant can get rolling on this Jax, and then try and play the map. So Fnatic, I think playing towards those team fights could be the answer.
I mean, listen to okay, so first of all, this Jax for Irrelevant, 8 games this year, 6 of them are wins. The Annie in the mid lane for Humanoid, he has played it once. And yes, it was a win, but has not played it recently. And that, I think, is the first GP of summer groups here that I can recall. So that's not been locked in for Oscar in the top lane into the Jax.
Yeah, the only person that I really saw practicing the Gangplank was Finn, but has never really brought it out on stage. So I'm curious to see now how Oscarinin is going to do. Definitely feels like in this game, though, Fnatic aren't going to try and contest potentially the plays on top side, maybe leave the Gangplank on his lonesome and see if instead they can try and play a bit more heavily towards that bottom side.
Wow. Okay, so this is kind of a play-by-play's dream for Fnatic.
Yes!
With just the teamfight wombo combo potential. Just look at it, right? Rakan ultimate into Rell ultimate into Gangplank ultimate into Annie ultimate into Xayah ultimate. Just there's so much potential AoE one-shot teamfight capabilities. And perhaps this is the answer into the double AD carries that we've been seeing run rampant across the world. Tristana, Kai'Sa has been a duo that has found success everywhere in its ability to siege and its ability to quickly take objectives, the fact that you have the mixed damage profile because of the AP Kai'Sa, the amount of range, the poke, the front to back, it has so many options. Can Fnatic's one-shot burst AoE team fighting be enough to actually finally take off a win at SK, against SK this year?
To find out, it's 0-5 in favor of Fnatic. The Fnatic faithful are cheering loud and proud, but I will tell you something, SK have got a number of supporters here in the studio in Berlin today. We're loading up onto Summoner's Rift in a do-or-die elimination, best of 3 for a shot in our summer playoffs.
So fans at home, let's start with the SK fans, okay? Hi, I see you, yeah, I see you. So good news for the SK fans. You've locked a position for season finals. That's locked, you've already got that. If you lose here today, you still get a chance to qualify for the World Championship, but right now you're fighting for top 4 to get back to where you were at Winter. Fnatic, things are a little more dire. Because of your positions as a result of Winter and Spring, if you lose here, your chances of getting to the season finals are 0. You will not get an opportunity to qualify for Worlds.
Do Fnatic make it to season finals, Vedi?
They need to get top 3, Quickshot.
Which means they have to win today, and it means they have to win next Friday.
That they do.
And then irrelevant what happens on Saturday next week, they are then on the road to Montpellier.
But if I'm SK, I'm like, wait, we can knock out Fnatic here? We can
that they can.
Which is kind of a sick proposition when you come into today. So I think SK will definitely be happy to try and take that skin.
And very quickly, if you are a Vitality fan, you are hoping for both Fnatic and Heretics to lose. Because if either Fnatic or Heretics go further, go deeper, that is how Vitality lose their spot in the season finals. Let's bring ourselves back into the game right now. You can see the push on the bottom.
So we've talked a lot about this score, about the fact that SK is 5-0 over Fnatic. Let's talk about what exactly happens. Basically, Fnatic is very good at getting early game leads. Fnatic this split have been super aggressive off the back of Razork, and you can see against every other team in the league, they average a 1.1k goal difference of 14. But against SK, they can't even get a positive goal difference. They just cannot find those early game advantages, and it's why SK just continues to have their number.
And I think a huge amount of that has come down to Markoon. In a lot of their series, Markoon has been matching the plays that Razork has tried to make, specifically around the top side, and they've been taking these skirmishes off the back of Irrelevant. It's worked out well. DOS is not working out well in the bot lane, but I think this is where SK, if they can try and keep that style, slow down the game and play the map, that's where they found success against Fnatic.
Oh, yeah.
And if you do cast your minds back to last week, it was in fact Exakick and DOS that were getting the early trades, the early pressure in lane, and forcing Noah and Trymbi back. They silenced that bottom lane with the Xayah Rakan duo. They're already pressing forward into that Alistar, somewhat to be expected. We got a quick glimpse there of Sertuss shoving forward into Humanoid. And both of the respective junglers making their way towards this top lane.
Yeah, and top lane is going to be really important because you can already see Irrelevant putting a lot of pressure down onto this Gangplank. Gangplank doesn't have a huge amount of trading power or potential as much as he used to after a bunch of nerfs that happened to him. And that early dive is something you have to be very cautious of as a jungler and a top laner. So makes sense that Razork is pathing towards top side and is looking to try and cover for Oscarinin, who could be in some danger.
That's the thing, though. I only think this gets harder for Oscarinin as it goes on, right? Markoon's obviously up here already, but Sertuss should get control over mid lane as well, be able to roam up, and that three-man dive could be terrifying. Markoon starting to wander into the enemy jungle now.
And remember, Markoon was a madman last week on the Poppy. Very, very aggressive plays. Was able to disrupt and get in the face of Razork, who right now he's been contested on the skull. If you look at the minimap though, it's SK's pushing waves that can come forward. Shattering strike out, and Razork actually gets the crab. Markoon forced to back away, licking his wounds. No significant advantage between them, but Razork and Markoon at least stepping towards this middle lane. Little bit of damage. Rocket jump forward. Charges on top. The strike is out. The crash down. Sertuss is running for his life. The follow-up from Humanoid. The auto. The tick. The burn is simply not enough. Turn the attention to the battle pig, and Markoon's able to escape with his life thanks to the flash.
I don't know what Sertuss was thinking, though. You could see Markoon was not ready for that play at all. He was thinking, right, I've got push on bot side. Let me get that other scuttle crab and even up the top side play, but they end up burning both flashes now in the mid lane.
Vedius, thank you so much. This is a play-by-play stream. Let's go for another fight. Knockup from Trymbi onto DOS, the stun onto Razork. Both of these teams willing to throw down. Both of these teams, in most of their recent games, looking to find those kills to accelerate their advantage.
Now, based on what we were just talking about, this is the type of game that Fnatic loves. Getting these early skirmishes, looking for early fights. The way in which SK have been able to control Fnatic is, as Dagda was talking about earlier, matching enemy junglers, trying to keep a slow pace, but Irrelevant wants to pick things up.
Flash for flash, counter strike, one more auto might be all that's needed. Oscarinin 110 HP. He's parlayed, but it might not be okay. Flash was burnt. Irrelevant solo kills Oscar.
Irrelevant has been popping off, and the fact he got his jacks. This is exactly what SK want to respond to the chaos Fnatic are trying to bring. Get that top side under control. They can try and play for sides. And if Oscarinin starts to fall behind, this is only going to get worse as this jack starts to scale up.
Great play there from Irrelevant, a player that I think we've seen consistently perform for SK throughout this split, has carried a number of games, and he just sees the health disparity. Oscarinin doesn't have enough mana to be able to get out of this situation. Flash for flash, easy pickup.
And that's the thing, the fact he actually parlayed the barrow meant he didn't have the remove scurvy mana available, so Irrelevant then able to follow up and manages to get the kills. So a little bit unfortunate there for Oscarinin, just couldn't quite get the slow on the jacks.
That means Irrelevant will be able to pick up that Sheen 500 gold advantage. Minor leads elsewhere on the map. Big CS advantage for now in favor of Noah, plus 20. As Exakick does have to pick up that wave. Keep in mind, DOS did roam a moment or two ago, and we saw the early trading going in favor of Fnatic's bottom lane. But once again, Markoon playing for that invade approach. Oscarinin takes a gigantic chunk as that wave is pressing into it.
And look where Markoon is. They already know that the enemy jungle's on Dragon, so Markoon's just going to wander up. Will be spotted here, but Oscarinin, there's no way you hold
Flash
this.
Available. Powder Keg is dropped down, trying to clear out some of these waves. Teleport from Humanoid just to thwart the dive. Luckily for Humanoid, Sertuss is underneath his tower, so can't push for a plate.
That was a much-needed teleport. for Oscarinin. If he had lost that wave, this top lane that was already going poorly for Oscarinin would have been made so much worse. But now Oscarinin got level 6. You could very clearly see that they wanted to try and dive before he got to that window. Now that you have it, your ability to cross-map, the ability to impact elsewhere on the map, and also just your ability to wave clear. The threat of a dive now becomes a lot harder if you can just ult the wave and walk away to safety.
Yeah, it does mean, though, for Sertuss, he actually gets another recall in. So Humanoid had managed to push Sertuss back early. Obviously, we saw those flashes burn, and was only sitting on the no magic mantle. So Sertuss is going to breathe a sigh of relief now that he actually gets this quick little cheater recall in as Humanoid has to come back in and get himself those early Merc threads to keep himself alive.
Very quickly, Oscarinin and Irrelevant coming into the series. Each had secured 4 solo kills apiece. Irrelevant strikes first in this game, so it's now 5-4. They make 6th and 7th, respectively. I want to track that as both of those players have been known to fight one another. And Razork will run into a level 5 Markoon. First to respond should be DOS. It looks like he's making his way through the jungle. Here comes Noah and Trymbi, however. Blue buff has been secured by Razork once more. Level 6 available. The Magnet Storm can be used and is thrown down, pulling Exakick back. Here comes Humanoid. Razork flashes over the wall. Kill for Fnatic on the board. Humanoid, no tibbers available to him, and SK back away.
SK looks super disjointed on these plays. You can see that some people are calling to go in. DOS wants to try and cut off the retreat. Sertuss is hopping over the wall, but the rest of the team aren't following, and now Sertuss is caught again.
Is indeed no flash, and Trymbi's going to run away. Razork doesn't find the Q. This allows Humanoid some time alone with the tower. It's secured. While that was going on, top lane was being pushed underneath the tower for Irrelevant, and Fnatic able to respond to that invade.
I gotta say, when I initially looked at that play from Razork, I was like, what is this boy doing? He just
Bold
walked into
move.
that blue buff, he was spotted on a ward, but the way in which the team played around him was great. Like, honestly, the fact that his bot lane immediately collapsed, the fact that he didn't panic, he waited for the sneak to come through from Markoon before creating space. Overall, great play from Fnatic. They get themselves a kill, but now DOS is hovering around the top side of the map. Level 4. Looking for a play, and also the Herald has spawned.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's looking for here. You can see both Razork and Trymbi starting to make their way up towards this top side as well as the Herald is coming up, but they need to try and push in here, see if they can get control. Top side, though, are they still trying to look for the dive onto the Gangplank?
Trymbi just got level 6. He's got the flash. Razork's Magnet Storm's up in 7 seconds, so the engage tools are huge. Markoon's starting to back away, and it doesn't look to me like SK want to contest this.
That's the biggest difference here. After DOS lost his life, there was already an experience difference between the two supports, but the fact that Trymbi went straight to mid lane to share XP with Humanoid, whereas DOS tried to cover top to see if he could find a pick, meant that Trymbi gets level 6. Trymbi is now way stronger, and SK say, you know what, we can't even risk this fight. So, easy objective picked up for Fnatic, and now they can use this to either get Oscarinin back into the game, they can use it to unlock mid, or they can just try and funnel more gold into Noah.
But this is the pace of the game that Fnatic love, and this is kind of where we're seeing the adaptations from Fnatic versus last series to this series, where they are trying to play more around Razork, make sure that they're getting in the face of Markoon and preventing him from really having these big impacts. And now the fact that they have that control has lent itself over to a Rift Herald that they can use to snowball the gold as well. I think a lot of this should go into this bottom side, into Noah, just to try and get this Xayah into a position where she's fully ahead. But we'll have to see what the plan is. It's Trymbi gonna have to hop out.
Yeah, I really like the way that you say that, Dagda, because I think that this is the biggest difference. Trymbi and Razork just seem to be working much closer together. And, you know, I can say those two specifically, but the whole team seems to be a lot more coordinated in giving resources to the jungler. We know Razork wants to be in your face and he wants to be aggressive. And look at them right now. They're just in the face of SK in the river, and they're looking for another fight.
I'm a little nervous. I think SK may be able to respond first. However, Humanoid gets an E on his head. He's forced to back away. Look at the bottom lane. Exakick pushing towards Noah. And at least for now, Trymbi and Razork still holding hands. Gentlemen, you described it beautifully, and they're still hunting for more.
This is the thing, though. Fnatic are more than happy to fight. They have the Gangplank ultimate up and available. There's no TP for Irrelevant. So whenever they fight, if they can land that Razork setup or the Trymbi setup, there's a ton of damage that can come down very quickly that SK really just can't match at the moment. So I think that's why Fnatic happy to just go into bot, shove out the wave, and use that bot priority now to get control over river. SK, I think you need to forgo this. They need to try and make a cross map, but Irrelevant, he's resetting now, right as Dragon respawns.
Now, naturally, we're singing the praises of Fnatic, but don't believe for a second that SK are worried in the position that they're currently in. They're only down about 1,000 gold. They still have fantastic scaling. We talked about how Kai'Sa and Tristana are globally a very powerful combo in terms of their damage portfolio, the range that they have later on into the game. The amount of poke and scaling that this duo has means that SK is always going to have a late game threat, and it's ultimately going to come down to these team fights.
Well, there might be another one on the cards. Razork will be enough of a dissuasion for SK to peel away from this Mountain Drake. No TP for Oscar. However, he's got that cannon barrage. Irrelevant. Looking for another solo kill. Leaps, empowered strikes. The W to the face. Another leap. Forces the flash. Follow under the tower with the Grand Master. But the slow from the barrage is simply not enough. And another to the tally for Irrelevance.
It's just Irrelevant popping off. I was like, SK needed to play around top side. They needed to try and do something because they started up Dragon. 2 people resetting. Fnatic like, what the hell are you doing, lads? But they didn't need to go up to help Irrelevant. Irrelevant's just winning there himself.
This man continues to go against his namesake. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
incredible performance in the top lane once again. Irrelevant really making a name for himself as one of the best tops in the league.
Is it going to become a case of like Rookie over in the LPL called himself Rookie and then he was like, oh, when I win Worlds or I become really good, I'm going to change to Veteran. And that was the idea. So maybe Irrelevant, when he gets to a point, he's just going to name change to now I'm Relevant. But this was just beautiful play.
I mean, you see that Irrelevant already has a health advantage, and he knows that Gangplank in these extended trades just can't win. Flash is after him. I'm surprised that he committed to the dive, but Irrelevant, clearly knowing the limitations of his champion, able to walk away from getting himself a solo.
And I just hear his mum's words in my ears once again. You were never irrelevant to me. He is now tied for second in the entire league for solo kills after picking up 2 here
What a
against Oscar. So 6-4 is the record in the season. Irrelevant looking to make that another. He's got himself that Divine Sundra, has had that for a little while. Static Shift was just picked up by Exakick, and the Rift Herald is about to time out, so Razork drops it in the middle lane. Can they escort it to that tower before he can get dropped? There is some potential defense from SK.
I mean, they're bringing Noah here as well. The wave clear from Humanoid is good. Markoon going to try and slow this down a little bit. Can Humanoid get close enough?
Glacial Prison's available. That's the Arctic Assault forward. Markoon's holding onto the trigger, stunned up by the Incinerate. And the Rift Herald did get the charge. Markoon's still sitting on that ulti. Exakick can come from longer range. Doss goes in for the headbutt. Pulverize. It's Razork that gets the kill. Sertuss to the meter applied back, and Humanoid's now the target. The satchel, the buster, the kills to SK.
SK take the fight to Fnatic in the mid lane. They clearly see that Humanoid wants to get some gold off the tower. And in that overextension, Doss sees an opportunity to engage. While Noah will get some plates in the bot lane, SK find themselves 2 kills in mid.
And it's a good call from SK. They're like, look, we'll drop this bot lane and make sure that we can actually get a play happening mid. I think if Fnatic had backed off, it could have been all right, but SK, they just come from all sides, headbutt into the setup there to make sure they can actually get Markoon into position. And then here, I think you just call it a day. You know that you've already got the Kai'Sa running up from bot side, and you've got Xayah who's clearing at the waves, but Fnatic just stick around that bit too long, and SK are able to follow up.
Even though Doss does lose his life, Sertuss flashes in to make sure that he can secure that kill. Then, because he's in range, he's able to follow up. Now Doss sees an opportunity top.
All right, Doss and Trymbi nearby. Irrelevance below 50% hit points at level 11. Markoon's nearby. The thing I really liked about that mid lane play as well on behalf of SK, Markoon really held his trigger. He waited for the prisoner, was waiting for the backup for the rest of the squad. And for a player that has, as I've mentioned several times, played very bold, very fast and loose, especially last weekend, I like seeing that patience. Doss right now still sitting in this upper wave. The observer's highlighting the lack of vision. Markoon, no ult. And I think Oscar's aware of it. He smells something fishy because no one has shown for ages.
Don't mind the cow that's flying past the window. But it does open up Fnatic now to get in towards mid lane. Noah going to be able to crack that one. They could also start to lean into the bot side if they really wanted to look for that tier 1 of the bot. Rift Herald is up though, and it looks like that's what Fnatic want to try and fight for. They have good control over River at the moment, but I think they want to reset.
This is what I will say. Noah quietly been farming up a Storm. He has 158 CS in 15 minutes. He has a 1k gold lead over his 1.3k gold lead. I have to correct myself, over his lane opponent. He has not really been involved in a lot of the action, but he is going to become one of the big threats for Fnatic as the game continues. But the thing we haven't talked about is that SK, while their composition is strong in terms of what it can do around objectives, how it can siege, how it can team fight, something that isn't often talked about is the split push threat. Tristana is a fantastic side lane champion. She's very safe, she has a lot of disengage tools, and she clears waves incredibly quickly. And Irrelevant on Jax can do the same, but thanks to his dueling prowess and his ability to just hold his own in the 1v1, which means that SK have the ability to play a 1-3-1, and Fnatic don't really have tools to match it outside of the Gangplank ultimate. They are very reliant on 5v5s, and they're going to have to rely on this dragon stacking to force SK to come to them so they can find the fights that they want.
And that's why I really like how active DOS is trying to be on this map. Like, he's leaving Kai'Sa in the mid lane and starting to roam around, see if he can help out Irrelevant quite a bit. He's getting kills for Sertuss. And I think if you want to try and play the split push style, which clearly SK are trying to go for, having these solo laners get ahead is going to be crucial to that.
And I will say, Static Shiv has made solo lane AD carry mids that much more convenient, right? Their ability to just instant clear a wave, play very safe, means that Kai'Sa is perfect for a role just like that.
Yeah, although right now Fnatic trying to punish Irrelevant on this bottom side. They know that Kai'Sa has to take a step back, so immediately trying to group. But I think this is where it's going to struggle a little bit for SK at the moment until they actually crack this mid lane tower down. Trying to move around the map to help out Irrelevant so he can threaten any of these side towers, or even having the opportunity for Sertuss to do so without deep vision is going to be really tough.
And keep in mind, Dagda, that Sertuss and Irrelevant, they've still got that level advantage over Oscarinin and Humanoid. Minor leads, and until a second ago, it's both of them that had the advantage. Teleport being channeled, Irrelevant's the target. Backup from Markoon is there. Teleport being channeled, but I think Irrelevant will be taken out. Oscar gets the kill. They get the teleport from Sertuss. It is now a 5 versus 4. Do SK try challenge or look for that mid tower?
Sertuss is in a really strange spot. I don't think they can really go for very much here. Should be able to threaten onto the mid tier 1, although I think Fnatic could actually drop, maybe just leaving Razork here and try and move in towards the mid. Rift Herald has been dropped though.
And I mean, this is a good call in my opinion. They used the Herald, they unlocked this tower. It's what Dagda and Vedius were just talking about, maybe opening up some avenues for SK. The thing is, that ticking time bomb, 17.5 minutes for 3 dragons. We're playing for Soul at 22. So if Fnatic need to bait SK towards them, a Dragon Soul is a guarantee to force their attention. I
mean, I just think it was a smart play from Fnatic to attack one of the side lanes, right? The strange part was that they committed 2 ultimates, but when you look at the context, SK are too hesitant to fight this early on with their 2 AD carries without Irrelevant being there. So the commitment was good, they find themselves a kill, they converted into that 3rd Drake, and Fnatic can kind of keep the game going at their own pace. 1k gold lead in the jungle, 1k gold lead for the AD carry. The mids remain even for the time being. Overall, Fnatic in a great spot.
And this is where I want to start seeing SK move into a different position, where it's a case of, hey, we're going to leave DOS and Markoon with Exakick in mid so we can actually threaten that mid wave. And then you can start to lean with Markoon and DOS to bot side to get the last remaining outer tower that will be there after Irrelevant is finished on this top side. That's where I think Fnatic now will have to make sure that they're keeping control of their own jungle and stopping these quick routes for SK to come in, and then they can buy time to play for this dragon that's just going to be up in under 4 minutes time.
Yeah, I think you summarized it really nicely, Dagda, because all I'm thinking about is like this deeper vision, right? We really haven't seen much from SK, even though they've seen opportunities. This vision that we're seeing on our screens right now, thank you observers, is the type of vision that SK wants to get so that they can create that strong side, weak side, and then start sieging towards these towers and leverage the Tristana and Jax that can melt through these objectives. But as you already said, Fnatic doing the right thing.
The thing I do like about Fnatic is how they've been able to play those side lanes. We mentioned how concerning it can be with the split push power of SK's comp. Oscarinin has actually closed that gold lead that was, what, nearly 1,500, like 10 minutes ago, which is gigantic. It is on a champion like Gangplank, so he's got the ability to farm up. And I think his cannon barrage could be humongously influential if SK do not set up their side lanes well. Target here is Markoon. No backup yet. Magnet Storm thrown out by some time from that glacial prison. Not enough to stay alive, is taken out by Razork. Trymbi engages further onto Sertuss. Buys some time with the stopwatch. The barrage is thrown down and DOS is running for his life. More members of Fnatic grouped up and SK simply unable to thwart the attack.
And Baron's about to spawn. Fnatic are just going to be able to run immediately into that. They've TP'd Irrelevant. He wants to try and make a play onto Oscarinin and then maybe turn over towards the Baron.
All right, Baron is slowly being focused down. Oscar chased by Sertuss in the top lane. Irrelevant has joined the fray and Baron may go down before SK can get in range.
I mean, Markoon isn't alive. I don't see how SK can contest this. This will be Fnatic getting revenge. The last time they met, 20-minute Barons in both games from SK. This time round, Fnatic caught them unawares and secures a Baron for themselves.
Lose 5 games to give them false hope. And then it comes down to the crucial moment.
Nobody beats Fnatic 6 times in a row in 2023.
But I mean, this is beautiful stuff, right? It made onto this top side. Play the lanes before the waves can really get in position for Fnatic. For SK. And Fnatic immediately come across. They get the pick onto Markoon. And at this stage, phenomenal flank from Humanoid. Immediately onto Exakick. removes him from the equation, and then Fnatic back away with so much in their back pockets.
While you were breaking that down, I was just looking at the mini-map, and I just saw that, like, SK were basically just coming out of base, right? Fnatic, they abandoned bot lane, they had a group in mid, they had one pushing top, and now they're looking for a pick bot.
All right, Magnustorm again available. Sertuss the target, he has the flash. Trymbi, is it time for the quickness? He's been headbutted away, flies forward, quickness down onto DOS, and it's Noah that finds his first kill of the game. 6-4, 2,000 gold the lead. The fourth tower about to fall, and Baron empowered minions for the continued siege, plus 1 minute until the soul is available.
Fnatic are playing this map so well, though, consistently shoving in mid and then just dropping the wave entirely to make plays now.
Oh, Captain Rain was not enough for Trymbi, and Exakick! Where did he go? He got parlayed to oblivion. The inhibitor turret will fall. Irrelevant's trying to push the mid lane, but it's 40 seconds to Dragon. The inhibitor secured. It's a 10,000 gold leads.
SK, they're asking for a parlay, but Fnatic is disinclined to acquiesce to their request. Fnatic are absolutely stomping SK now, and Irrelevant is doing what he can. There was a top gap, but right now there is a team gap as Fnatic is tearing SK apart.
Ooh, we're able to get that empowered recall. That was great. Pretty nicely done. Do you remember the days we used to track GP ultimates all the time? What is he upgraded already? Fire at will. Man, you just really brought back some old memories. You'll rue the day you almost called Captain Jack Sparrow.
I used to know all of the words to the boat scene, you know, where he tries to, like, borrow the boat.
The entire film is on boats, so no, you hit it down. The entire point is pirate ships.
Okay, never mind then.
We'll look up the scene and we'll bring it back for the beginning of our next game.
I'm just remember the jar of dirt is the
All right, now, Fnatic are looking to secure their soul. They broke open the base. Gigantic gold lead, and SK simply cannot contest. It becomes very difficult for them at the moment. What a happy face as they're backstage at Fnatic camp.
Just working a knot out,
That's
you know,
it.
just making sure they're all going to be good and dandy. But for Fnatic, this is looking fantastic. Oscarinin has kind of hit that point where he's just mass clearing waves. You'll see it in a second with his barrels. So for Irrelevant to really get threat onto these towers is just completely nullified at this stage. And even when you're looking at bot side, Sertuss just isn't in a position to really be a threat up against Humanoid. So you're totally fine now as Fnatic to go, right, side lane's under control. Let's just continue to play for these big team fights. And that's where our composition's strongest anyway.
And look, if we zoom out and think about the 23 minutes, 100% kill participation for both Razork and Trymbi. And both Dagda and Vedius were highlighting how well they are working together and how much that is a stark difference from what we saw last week. Last week, SK were able to 2-0 Fnatic, I think in large part because Markoon disrupted the early game. Markoon was able to prevent any of these things happening, combined with the fact that Noah was silenced in the bottom lane. So with Fnatic opening up this series with a strong statement, they now need to look at getting past those next line of inhibitors, but they've got the dive, they've got the AoE, and it's going to be very hard for SK to find an opportunity. I think they're going to be looking to punish Fnatic, maybe overstepping.
I ultimately think that Fnatic very much relies on Razork. He is the lifeblood of their early game agency, and he's found another champion that he can have that impact on. His Rell has been spectacular. We saw him just walking into the enemy blue buff. We've seen him constantly looking for invades, and he has just been super proactive. And as you highlighted, 100% kill participation throughout this entire game. So huge props to Razork when he is on form, Fnatic are on form.
But it's also the fact that Fnatic are playing so well around him. Like we talked about Trymbi consistently linking up with him. The fact that Humanoid has been moving across as they go for invades on bot side. It's made it so difficult for Markoon to have that same impact. Now Humanoid stepping up.
All right, disintegrate, incinerate, obliterate, decimate. They do not pull the trigger, but the threat is there. SK started back away 1.5 minutes until the second Baron of the game is available. 4 minutes until Elder. And the fact that they have to deal with the super minions in the bottom lane makes it a little bit easier for Fnatic to set up.
So basically all Fnatic are doing right now is they're just playing around the Baron. Look at this control. They've got wards littered all across the enemy jungle. They know that the Baron is spawning in about 1 minute's time, and so they're just kind of patiently chipping away at all these objectives and basically playing the map patiently at this point, right? They've got all the advantages they need. Dagda and Quickshot were both talking about it earlier, and they don't need to rush anything or accelerate the game too much.
Look at Trymbi really letting the side down in total gold. I mean, come on, bro. The rest of your
Hey
squad...
man, he's doing his best.
He beat his opposition. That's all that matters.
Medic is going to murder me backstage with the Rakan and Laure's goal, but Noah finds himself yet another kill, the 8th of the game. Trymbi looking to set up another as DOS is forced to flash. It's 30 seconds until the Baron is alive. The minion wave slowly making its way forward. Top lane, I think, is pushing towards SK, if I read that correctly. Super's about to crest the steps. DOS and Markoon stepping forward. Glacial Prison's available and used. Needs to buy time. Flash away. The Magnet is storming down. And Razork is on a rampage. Sertuss is blown up by Oscarinin and Gangplank. And with 4 members down, Fnatic are inside the base. They're looking at the Nexus for game number 1.
I thought Fnatic were going to wait for Baron. It was going to be, you know, we'll play for the save point. We have all the vision. Like, nah, screw it. This is over. Let's take us to game 2.
A beautiful demonstration from Fnatic. They stopped the early game, they found the team fights, and they will end their losing streak against SK.
For the first time in 2023, Fnatic take down SK. It's a simple line, but it's a powerful one. 1 and 5. And after that demonstration, that was the game I was expecting to call last week.
Yep. Weird that when you stop having expectations for Fnatic, they suddenly start playing really well again. But for Fnatic fans, they have to be excited. Only one more win and they will finally return to the top 4. But SK, I wouldn't count them out just yet.
Nope.
They did end up dropping a game to XL. They bounced back in game 2. They tended to revert back to a couple comfort picks. That's when we did see things like the Akali come through where they were able to step up. So I wouldn't count them out just yet. I'm sure that they found a strategy and they'll find a way to limit Razork's early game impact.
Yeah, I think the fact now that the side lane pressure hasn't worked, we're going to go back towards like team fighting and try to see if they can play towards that a little bit more. We'll have to see if it's going to work because honestly, I think if you can get a relevant onto champion, he can carry these fights. He was owning Oscarinin in the top
We'll
side.
find out. I sincerely hope that King Guldborg is on the analyst desk. Over to you, my liege.
Why?
I'm gonna let you open this one because
There's
yeah,
nothing to open here. I said I ate a corn dog in London once, and he's continued with this ever since.
it became
I
a
will not have
meme,
it.
but you have a tiny pin now. You don't have it now.
I don't
but he
have
has
it on me right
yeah,
now, no.
It looks amazing. Anyway, back to the game here and the first Fnatic victory against SK Gaming in 2023. Let's take a look at the draft here because a lot of interesting things I feel. I love the first 2 rotations on both sides, and for once we have the GP coming out against Jax. So something that I was expecting didn't quite work as expected in lane, but yeah, it had his impact afterwards.
Yeah, I think ultimately we hyped up Irrelevant quite a bit in the pre-show. He obviously showed why, because he was literally destroying Oscarinin in every way possible in the laning phase. I also have to say though, if you're SK, if you see your top lane winning this hard and you still lose the way they did, man, I don't know how you come back from that. That was brutal.
I think it's a bit crazy because with this draft as well from Fnatic in the beginning, I think they got everything they wanted. The fact that they finally pick up a Rell and flex it into the jungle so you can lock in Xayah for Noah and Rakan for Trymbi.
Trymbi,
Rakan is absolutely insane. And you give them S tier pick. I love the fact that Humanoid, coming from a Jace performance, having all these bans against him, is willing to play a more supportive role with the Annie and then actually just having Oscar a bit on weak side. And it also shows in the way they played. But yeah, I think Fnatic, they love their blue side draft here. And despite some of the OPs as well on SK Gaming, super happy for Fnatic with their first draft here in this series.
Well, I think that's the interesting part of the draft, that both teams can be happy. Both teams got what they wanted, and they're comfortable in every single position with the team comps that they build as a wall. But again, like SK, despite having a good early game in top lane, they just weren't able to play as a team. They got caught out too much. They were not on the same page in team fights. And eventually Fnatic grouped up and completely steamrolled them as a result.
Now let's take a look at what happened in the early game actually with this Irrelevant versus Oscarinin matchup, because once again, Irrelevant stomping the matchup in what's supposed to be a counter matchup for him, as GP should be better than Jax in this matchup. But yet again, the solo kill, King strikes again, Broxah.
I'm not really sure what actually led up to this one, because it's like a very interesting wave as well for Oscar, right? I didn't actually think the Observer had the camera fully here, but it's a terrible position as well. And Irrelevant again and again find him in this spot.
I think the problem in this top lane matchup is that both junglers were pathing top to bot throughout the entire early game, and they were not able to have attention after, you know, level 3. Like level 3, both junglers were around, and from that point onwards, it was just 1v1. Irrelevant was able to win the trades. He was able to put the wave in a position where it was frozen in front of his turret, and Oscar, on his own, in a bad position playing Gangplank, he had a decision to make. Do I base to get full health and drop 1 or 2 waves, or do I stay and try to somehow push it out on my own? because he tried to push it out, he ended up dying twice
Yeah.
for no reason. And it's just a byproduct of, bad wave management.
And I think this is really interesting because of the way that the laning phase went from the top side. It created this difference in where both teams wanted to play out on the map. For SK Gaming, they found it so much easier to play up towards the top side and get these heralds. But these heralds were never actually really used to continue and further exploit the top lane matchups that they were currently having. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, Fnatic was so happy to just stack up these Drakes and keep the early game going through Razork. This was something they struggled with initially against SK, but coming into this one, it was pretty much flawless going into the third Drake as well.
So one thing that I didn't like from Fnatic in their series against SK last week was their setup, because they never got control around neutral objectives, not even one single time. But here we see it. Around 30 seconds before the Drake comes up, Razork moves in the bot river, Trymbi moves around mid lane to help Noah push out. They get river control, they get base vision, Irrelevant overextends, they kill him, and all of a sudden, because they were early for the dragon play, they get a free kill and a free dragon, and this is huge improvement.
And it just goes to show that you have to be at your 100% throughout the entire game. Irrelevant did have flash when this went down, and he miscalculated how much damage would actually come out from Fnatic there. He flashes the initial engage actually coming out from Razork, then it becomes more playable, but since it didn't happen, then Fnatic just takes over, and all the pressure that Irrelevant has worked so hard to build out throughout the early game completely vanishes.
And I think this is where we see the consistency and improvements on the side of Fnatic, who were really sloppy around these objectives last week when SK was actually on point every time, 20 minutes Baron. And here we see that when SK is not in the best circumstances in the early game, they have a hard time coming back, even though they had the tools to do so here.
Yeah, I think just in general, SK were not really thinking ahead. They were not thinking of what Fnatic is going to do, what their next move is going to be. We saw Irrelevant getting caught out around Dragon that was about to spawn just before. Here, Fnatic is about to play for deep top vision so they can start threatening around the Baron area. Markoon flashes extremely late and just, isn't prepared for what's to come at all.
That's the interesting thing though, right? Because SK doesn't have any vision in their own red side jungle here. Taking that fight at this point in time is so risky just due to the fact that they don't have the info where Humanoid is coming in, and when he finally joins the flight from a flank, it's already too late. And you can see it here in the beginning. It's very even. I think Dust made a huge effort, is actually trying to roam out the map, making plays happen. The thing that was for them was the early game plays that SK committed to did not work, while Fnatic's actually did. So a lot of the early game execution really made the game a bit more difficult for them as well with the way they were moving as a team.
I think one thing that stuck out to me as well was how poorly SK was able to set up their AD carry in fights, because usually in the mid and late game, it's all about the AD carry being able to hit the opponent. If you fight in the zone where the AD carry is unable to hit, like the fight we just saw where Exakick was trying to help his team, hitting over the wall, eventually getting flanked by the Annie, you should not even think about taking that fight. You have to call it off immediately. But they just seem to be unaware of when they shouldn't fight, and if they don't have the control, things just quickly slip out of their hands.
And it's often the same issue with SK, the fact that if Exakick and Dust are not set up properly in the early game, usually this is when SK comes and shambles in the mid game. What do we want to see next game, though, with SK being on red side? Maybe not give Trymbi his best champion might be a thing here, but what kind of priorities do you want to put on when it comes to the first rotation of the draft at first?
I think you can definitely try and actually leave open the Rumble if you want to. Fnatic didn't show too much priority on that, and maybe you can get rid of the Rakan in that instance. I think also you're probably putting more emphasis on Irrelevant in this game. The fact that he did so much with so little resources could probably speak to the fact that you want to see a high-impact top game. I'm not too sure what your read is going to be going into the next one.
I think it's tricky because, again, if I was SK, I would be happy with this draft. I got everything that I wanted, and I still got completely destroyed in almost every aspect except of top in the early game. For Fnatic, I think all they have to do is shut down Irrelevant, and it's looking like a free win, I'm not going to lie. SK, on the other hand, they need to be proactive. They need to find a way for Dust to be able to move away from bot lane, group with Markoon, make plays around Irrelevant, because it seems like he's going to be the hope coming into this one. Aggressive roaming support, aggressive jungler, Sejuani is not good enough, and then go ham top.
We'll see if Fnatic can make it here, or if we're going to have a series as we'll see if Fnatic strikes first here in Game 1. And can they close out the series and lock their spot in the summer playoffs? Let's find out after the break.
Oscarinin 110 HP. He's parlayed, but it might not be okay. Flash was burnt. Irrelevant solo kills Oscar.
I can flash on him.
Yeah, I think good. I think good.
Good job.
Look.
Yeah, he gets stunned.
Nice. Go check.
You can go.
Dash W, okay? Dash W. They're trolling.
Look at me, guys.
Yeah, I can help. You play.
Tres.
Yeah, guys, go on Alistar. Go on. We just kill all. Nice. Very good game.